So what exactly are the grouts? So grouts are generally packable materials which are used to fill the large spaces or the fractures that have occurred by bonding and creating a watertight sealing or watertight seal in order to prevent the groundwater seepage. Now these grouts can be indigenously classified on the basis of their viscosity and their behavior with respect to various masses. Now, they can be classified into cement grouts, the sanded and unsanded grouts, the chemical grouts, which are further classified on the basis of the chemicals used as epoxy grouts, acrylic grouts, and furan grouts. And the other grouts include the latex modified grouts, the non-shrink grouts. So what exactly are the cement grouts? So cement grouts are basically used to create a solid bearing surface, and these grouts help in the transferring of a load to a highly resistant load bearing surface, and are further classified into sanded, unsanded, and the latex modified grouts. So sanded grouts generally have a larger concentration of the sand and less percentage of the fines, whereas the unsanded grout generally have a smoother structure and a fine and a flexural nature with a larger number of fines. So the sanded grouts, because of the presence of a larger sand and and less finer structure, are highly durable and can even scratch the surface where they are being applied. Whereas in the case of the unsanded grouts, they are comparatively less durable, as well as the cracks can be easily formed due to the lack of binding. Coming to the latex modified grouts, this is actually a sanded grouts where the latex polymer has been added to it as in the form of an additive or a catalyst, so that it can increase the water sealing ability as well as the compressive strength of the sanded grouts. The non-shrink grouts are also a type of the cement grouts which consists mainly of the hydraulic cement, which is the Portland cement, and do not shrink when hardened. That is, the final volume is generally greater than the initial volume, with a rapid settling property of about 2 to 5 days. They are generally used for load bearing members and for transferring the loads. Coming to one of the most important grouts, which is the chemical grouts that have been used recently in many usages, include the chemical grouts, which are highly durable and strong and are highly resistant to stains and cracks. They not only support any kind of harsh weather conditions and climatic changes, but also aids to a greater adhesion, which means we get a more strengthening property by them. Now there are various grouting techniques which are classified on the basis of the pressure that is being applied and on the area at which they can be applied. These include the permeation grouting, displacement grouting, compaction grouting, and the jet or replacement grouting. So our major focus will be on the permeation grouting, in which the grout is generally injected into the medium without disturbing the original grain structure. So it is generally done by permeation or seepage, and the pressure varies in the range of about 5 to 10 MPa. Whereas in the case of jet or replacement grouting, the grout material is generally injected into the mass in the form of a jet column or a columnar structure, and the displacement occurs and the displacement is huge as compared to the permeation grouting, and at the same time it is expensive. Now these two grouting techniques are the only grouting techniques which are best fit for the chemical grouts. The other two, which include the displacement and compaction grouting, are not of much use for the mines because of the less area that we have to apply the grout to, and because of its highly expensive nature. Now since we already know about the chemical grouts like the acrylites, acrylamides, the epoxies, resins, etc., we also have to consider the parameters which will best suit the material on which we have to use the chemical grout. Now these parameters can be classified into five major parts, which include the viscosity of the grout, gel time, the sensitivity, toxicity, and the most important, durability and strength. Now, as we already know that viscosity is the flowability of any material or grout through the pore spaces of the soil or any medium. So in general, if the hydraulic conductivity of the medium is in the range of about 10 power minus 4 centimeter per second, the grout viscosity should be less than 2 centipoise. Whereas in case the hydraulic conductivity increases from 10 power minus 4 centimeter per second to 10 power minus 8 centimeter per second, the grout viscosity should vary in the range of 2 to 4 centipoise. Coming to the gel time. So in general, we tend to confuse with the gel time and the cure time. So gel time is basically the interval in between in which the initial mix and the gel formation is taking place, whereas the cure time is basically the interval in between the initial mix as to when the grout has gained the required properties like that of an compressive strength or the particular gelling or particular gelling temperature. So it generally determines the pumpability. As in the chemical grouts, there are two processes which can be used for injecting the chemical grout, which include the one-shot process and a two-shot process. So in general, in a one-shot process, we initially mix the grout with all the additive, catalyst and auxiliary agents and inject it to the rock mass. Whereas in the case of two-shot process, we initially inject the chemical into the rock mass, and later, after it has attained a certain gel-like formation, we mix the additives and auxiliary agents and add it to it. So in general, the one-shot process takes a larger gel time takes a larger time to settle in, whereas in the case of the two-shot process, it takes a smaller gel time. So it determines the pumpability, that how we are going to pump the grout into the rock mass. Coming to the sensitivity, now these chemical grouts, since composed of many polymers and similar carbonic structures, are highly sensitive to temperature, the dilution which can be done by the groundwater, the pH content, and the contact with the undissolved solids. So while doing the analysis, we have to keep temperature as a major parameter of the input, so that we get the right values of the compressive strength that we are looking for. Coming to durability and strength, as I told earlier, the chemical grouts are highly sustainable in even the harshest and the any type of a climatic condition. So they are highly durable, but we have to consider the compounds which are highly durable. The epoxies and the furans have been found to be highly durable, whereas the acrylamides and the acrylates have been found to be less durable in case for the harsh temperature conditions. So the strength that we are trying to determine can be calculated using the unconfined compression test by using a uniaxial testing machine or a universal compressive strength testing machine, so that we can get the index for the strength. Now, since there have been a lot of urbanization as discussed earlier, toxicity is something which is very important parameters while selecting a particular grout compound in order to determine the various parameters, as we have to keep in mind the various environmental regulations to be considered before planning for using a certain grout, because it will not only affect the groundwater properties, but at the same time will cause acid mine drainage too. So there are various types of chemical grouts, which include the polyurethane grouts, the sodium silicate grout, and the acrylate grouts. I have mentioned the chemical structures of all these grouts above, and below are the grouts that have below are the images of the grouts that have been used at various places. So a polyurethane grout is generally something which comes with a very short settling time, and they are basically used to seal off the rock masses and are best suitable for the permeation grouting. And they not only work for smaller voids but work well for the larger voids, as you can see in the figure itself, that they have a foaming nature. So the settling time itself is very less. Coming to the sodium silicate grouts, these are generally solution grouts and come with a very low viscosity and have a controllable settling time. But at the same time, they aren't suitable for the rock mass discontinuities, as they can only fit into larger voids and not the smaller ones. Although they are less expensive as compared to the polyurethane grouts and have found various applications in the industry currently, but for our purpose, we cannot use it. Coming to the acrylate grouts, these are also very much similar to the sodium silicate grouts, but the only difference that exists is that one, it is very easy to handle. Second, it is very easy to handle, and two, that it has a very low settling time, even lower than that of a sodium silicate grout. So we can use the acrylate grouts, but we have to consider that, as you can see in the image, it has a very elastic and plastic kind of a behavior with respect to joining rock masses, which won't fit into the rock mass discontinuities well. We have considered the various grouts, and we decided to go on with the polyurethane grouts combined with the permeation grouting that we'll be using to analyze the various grout properties and the properties of the geocomposites that will be formed. That was the very basic foundation of the geotechnical part that we'll be using. Now coming to the machine learning tool. So basically machine learning is something which is a very adaptive system which learns from the data that the human provides to the computer or the machine, and it understands the data, it learns it, it validates a set of data, and then tests and recognize the various patterns that exist between the input and the output data set. Now, machine learning can be classified into various types, out of which our major importance lies in the artificial neural networks, the logistic regression, and the multiple linear regression. So ANN began as a perceptron or a single layer neural network by Macaulay and Pitts. It is actually, it learns the data, and so that we can train the data set and recognize the patterns, so that we can classify the data and predict the future values to avoid the complicated calculations. So in general, this neural network consists of one input layer, one or more hidden layers, and an output layer, which have interconnecting neurons just like that of a brain. Now coming to logistic regression, is a part of a multivariable regression analysis and is one of the most novel approaches which have been used for classifying observation among the classes. It is different from the multiple regression in the sense that the multiple regressions only find the relation between the dependent and the independent variable in terms of a normal distribution, whereas in case of a logistic regression we can determine whether or not a particular method is suitable for a particular data set by using the Bernoulli's distribution, where the range is between 0 or either 1. So this approach has become very popular in the recent years in the term of geotechnical engineering and have been used by Nandi and Shakur in 2008 for the slope stability analysis. Coming to the multiple linear regression, they are also simply known as the multiple regression, and basically use the statistical technique like that of a normal distribution or Xavier-Gorard distribution to predict the outcome of the dependent variables with respect to the independent variables which are basically the input data set.